As always, it's sort of unclear as to why North Korea tests missiles. A lot of this, I think, is planned ahead of time, and they really just want to have bigger and badder missiles. And that's sort of a large part of the timing of this. But we do know that they are very intentionally ramping up tests and ramping up tensions, both with South Korea and the United States. In the last 2 weeks, we've seen two missile tests that North Korea says was in preparation for a satellite launch. They say very soon, they're indicating anyway, that they will launch a reconnaissance military spy satellite. That would be condemned, of course, by the United States and its allies of a sort of long-range missile test in disguise. It's also important to note North Korea has not done any provocation of that level since 2017. So if that does happen, this is really a significant ramping up of tensions.
And the outgoing president, William Moon Jae-in, had tried to make progress with North Korea. His term, of course, is over. What sort of vacuum is his leadership going to leave?
Well, he leaves behind a peace process with North Korea that it's very safe to say did not make much progress. In the early part of his term, you saw that ramping up of tensions between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un. Then Moon Jae-in really served as sort of a mediator, and it looked like there would actually be some progress on inter-Korean cooperation. That, of course, has pretty much stalled since 2019. Now, the successors, the people who are vying to replace Moon Jae-in, have very differing views on North Korea. Lee Jae-myung, the liberal candidate, he's a member of Moon Jae-in's ruling party. He would continue large parts of Moon Jae-in's outreach to North Korea, whereas the conservative candidate, Yoon Suk-yeol, would take a more adversarial approach that is common for many South Korean conservatives.
So in terms of these two candidates, what are their credentials and what is the political mood in South Korea like at the moment?
Well, essentially, Lee Jae-myung, the liberal candidate, is a former provincial governor. He has more political experience. And his rival, Yoon Suk-yeol, is a former prosecutor. He does not have a lot of political experience. Neither man has a lot of foreign policy experience. And to be quite frank, I think if you read a lot of articles about the South Korean election from an international perspective, they will note very bluntly that this campaign has not been about issues. It has been dominated by mudslinging, by personal scandals, by corruption allegations. The candidates' families have been involved. South Korean elections are often this way, but it seems that this election in particular is between two candidates that are not really popular at the moment. But it's interesting to note that does not seem to be impacting turnout. We've seen very long lines at early voting stations. It seems that many people are turning up in order to prevent the other candidate from winning.
That's interesting. And as you pointed out, it's been very negative, but there's also been a very noticeable absence of any emerging women within the South Korean political system.
Yeah, definitely. This is something that is definitely a problem for South Korea. Basically, no matter what international global metric you look at, the situation regarding gender equality is not great. And for South Korea, they rank at or near the bottom in nearly every metric for developed countries. Despite that, however, you have a large group of young men who feel they are the ones that are discriminated against. And to be honest, they are politically quite powerful. You can see that in actually what happened today. The conservative candidate, Yoon, yesterday was quoted by the Washington Post as saying he is a feminist, that feminist is a sort of humanism, and in that sense, he can be considered one. Well, Yoon's supporters, many of them young men, did not like that comment. It created a severe backlash online. Yoon today walked back that comment, saying, no, he never said he was a feminist, and actually accused the Washington Post in some sense of exaggerating or misquoting him. So here on International Women's Day, you have a major candidate who is insisting, no, I did not say that I am a feminist.
That's interesting, leaving the women in the cold. It's also against the backdrop, William, of an intensifying COVID outbreak. Have they outlined their plans to contain it?
It definitely has been deprioritized in some sense. I mean, certainly there are economic issues that are very important and you know, longstanding issues that have been worsened by COVID. That's all been a part of this election. But as far as the actual COVID situation, experts here and government officials have been predicting for, quite some months now that there would be a peak as a result of the Omicron variant. We are seeing that peak here in South Korea, perhaps later than many other countries. In some ways, I think that just is a result of South Korea very successfully containing the virus until now. And interestingly enough, even though South Korea is reporting record numbers of cases, its approach has been to loosen COVID restrictions. We've seen curfews relaxed. The number of people that you can gather with has also been relaxed. There's even talk that very soon the government will relax the mandatory 7-day entry quarantine for people coming into South Korea.
So against this backdrop, are you prepared to predict who the likely winner is?
Oh, I couldn't guess that. The polls have shown that this is a very tight race. There was some expectation that the conservative candidate received a boost last week whenever he merged with a minor party candidate who was receiving a small but significant amount of support. So I think maybe he has the momentum, but all polling has been cut off for several days now. We haven't seen sort of the latest snapshot of the South Korean electorate. What we know, though, is this is a very, very close election.
Well, we'll watch with interest. Great to talk. Thanks, William.
Thanks as always.